We hear a lot about honesty in relationships, but what does that really mean? Do you have to share everything? And how do you share your truth so the other person listens and doesn't become defensive? Today, I'm teaching you my top 3 tips for being honest so you can build trust in all your relationships. So stay tuned. Season 5! Holy crap. I cannot believe I'm recording the 201st episode of the podcast. Oh my gosh, when I started this years ago, who knew? We are now in over 170 countries. We are regularly in the top 100 on iTunes. Thank you, or Apple, I should call it now. Thank you. It's just become amazing. I got a letter the other day from someone in Poland, and literally in the next 24 hours, I got something from someone in Malaysia. And I thought, this is amazing. This is incredible. And I'm just so happy to be here with you. This is, as I always say, really one of my very favorite things to be doing. And I feel really blessed and grateful that you're here with me. It's just incredible. I can't say enough. Well, I can say enough, and I'll shut up now so we can get to why you're here today. If you haven't yet, please leave a review. You can do that on Apple. You can rate this podcast on Spotify. It really, again, that's one of the biggest ways you can help me get the word out. We're trying for world peace here, people. I really believe if everyone had access to research-based, excellent information about how to be happy in their life and relationships, that hate would hopefully become a thing of the past, and we could really move forward as a world towards peace and unity, collaboration, and lots of communication. So healthy communication. So please help. It would mean a lot to me. It does mean a lot to me. I do read every review, and they fill my heart with so much. So please take the time. Again, I really thank you. All right. So this question has come up quite a bit, and I realize that there's some things that are conflated. There's some things that are sort of on top of each other that I don't want to be. I hope I said that well. And that's really how trust and honesty go together. So I got a lot of questions that come in asking for one or the other, but they're really asking for the same thing. And so I'm going to really break that all down today. And as always, I've got my top 3 tips, and you know how much I love you. So it'll all be here today. So let's talk about trust before we talk about how to be more honest in relationships to build trust. You know, we need to talk about how that, I want to talk about how trust relates to building honesty in your relationship and trust in your relationship. I want to talk about how that all goes together. Okay. So way back in episode 27 of the podcast, that is how important I knew it was way back when, first season. I talked about something I called the trust triad. And because there are basically 3 components that create trust in a relationship, and people don't really, we use that term trust like a blanket. I trust you or I don't trust you. People think it's very black and white, and it's completely not. You might trust your partner not to cheat, but it doesn't mean you really trust them. And I was working with a couple the other day, and I said that I don't think they really trusted each other. And the husband got, he was unhappy about that. He's very open and fabulous, but he, because of the word trust, it just feels like, no, I really trust my wife. I really trust her. But when I explained what I meant by trust, he really came around. He was like, oh, all right, that might be different than how I was thinking about it. So trust is made up of 3 components, and I go deep in episode 27. So if you want to check that out, you can. I will link to it, as always, in the show notes and in the corresponding blog post that goes with every single episode. So you can just find them on the website. Come on over, abbymedcalf.com. But here we go. I'm just going to say these 3, and then I do a deep dive if you want to go listen to the episode. So the first of this like trust triad is competency. And competency, as you might imagine, any relationship is huge. And by the way, I'm going to be talking a lot about love relationships today, partnerships, but everything I'm going to express today applies to any relationship you're in where you're trying to be more honest and build more trust. So work, siblings, friendships, obviously your partner, all the places. I do want to say that. So if you hear me saying a lot about partners, excuse that and please apply it to any relationship. So competency is all about, does the other person do what they say they will? And do they do that successfully? Do they do that efficiently? And again, this could be you doing it or them. But that's what competency is. Do they follow through? Do you follow through? Do they show up on time? Do you believe that they can do the things they promise or commit to? Do other people believe you when you promise or commit to something, right? In other words, can this other person, are they competent to do the job of being your partner, your friend, your coworker? And again, that is how people build it with you. When you are competent and you show up in that way, can you do the job? And we build this competency leg of the trust triad by taking things on and following through. That's pretty much it. We do it by not letting little things slip through the cracks. We build this, you don't say yes to everything because when you say yes to everything, you can't do it all. It's impossible. And it's, right? And so things slip through the cracks. Really, if you think about it, you do better to commit to a smaller number of things and do them consistently well than saying yes to everything and having some things fall through the cracks, because people don't remember. I've talked about this before. You can do lots of wonderful things, and the one thing you mess up on, right, is the one thing everybody remembers. I've said before, it's better, instead of focusing on doing the right thing, it's also important to make sure you don't do the wrong thing. And I would say that's even more important because that's what people remember more. I talk about this in other ways, but that has more weight in the brain. The way our brains have evolved and the way they're built, negative stands out more. And so we have, of course, the famous Barbara Fredrickson's 3-to-1 ratio. For every 3 positive things that happen, just 1 negative thing wipes them out. We have the famous Gottman marriage ratio, which is 5-to-1. It's not exactly how he says it, but it's, pretty much you can do 5 good things. And if you screw up once, your partner forgets the 5. And you've been through this. They pick up the one time you didn't clean the kitchen well, and you're like, oh, but I did this, this, and this, or the other 10 days I did it well. And it's like they're Teflon for that. They don't even hear it. That's really, so it's really important that when you say you're going to do something, that you do it, you follow through, and you do it consistently. And this is also why I often talk about getting as much help as possible. Because again, when there's too much on your plate, things slide, and we try to be everything to everyone, and then your competency goes. So getting help, committing to less things is the way to go to build up that corner of the trust triad. Another leg, this leg 2, these are not in any kind of order of importance, by the way. It's a triad. It's like a constellation where everything matters. No one star is more important than another star, right? They all make up the constellation. Goodwill is all about believing the other person has your best interest at heart. That's it. So goodwill in any relationship is you believing they have your best interest at heart and them believing that you have their best interest at heart. You believing that they care about you as a person, not just the role you fulfill. That's part of goodwill also, that you feel like I'm not just a wife, that this is someone, or a mother, that I'm not just fulfilling a role, but that you actually care about me, who I am, that we couldn't just insert some other person here. It's about me and what makes me special. And we tend to build this side of the trust triad as when we express compassion and empathy for other people's feelings. When, again, I did a whole podcast on empathy. You should listen up on that. But it's when we stop and give our full attention, when we listen well, when we ask specific questions. It's when we approach, in a couple especially, it's when you approach things as a we issue, not a you thing, not a you problem. It's a we problem. That that's what really helps that leg of the trust triad. Okay. And again, this is how you're building this in any of your relationships. And then the third is really our topic for today. It's really basically like I've taken the trust triad and I've broken out one of the pieces, which is honesty, because so many of you have written in about it. And so I just took it out. And so the third leg of this trust triad is integrity, which is really honesty. And it's really, it's about, are you saying something? If you're saying something so the other person won't get upset, that's not honest. That doesn't have integrity. Are you trying to manipulate someone else to so that you can get your way or to avoid a conflict? Are you afraid of someone's reaction? So you say something a certain way or you don't say anything at all. You've had this. Maybe your partner or someone says that you say to them, "You seem angry," and they're like, "No, I don't. No, I'm not." So, are you feeling one way, and saying that you feel this one way, but you really are feeling another way? Obviously, integrity or honesty is all, telling outright lies consistently. That's a problem. So we build up this facet of the trust triad by speaking our true feelings. And I'm going to go into this a little more about what true feelings really are. It's when we're willing to have those harder conversations, when we don't brush everything under the rug. We do this by speaking as truthfully as possible all the time, especially, about little things too, not just the big things. Now, you've got to work on all three components of the trust triad to build trust in your relationships. But today, like I said, we're going to go kind of deep dive, dive a little thicker, deeper, whatever the words are, into that third leg, which is integrity and honesty. Okay. So I just wanted to give you the bigger context for what we're speaking about, and how it all relates. So I want to make sure I'm moving forward the way I want to. Okay. So let's define honesty, right? That's probably where we should go next. Honesty in your relationships is really about authenticity and transparency. Okay? When you're being honest, this integrity piece, when you're being honest and you have integrity in a relationship, it means you're straightforward. It means you say what you really think and feel. It means you don't willfully omit or misdirect other people. So there's no manipulation now, and I'm using that word manipulation. I know right now, don't send me hate emails. It's manipulative. I understand it's not like cruel. We think of that word manipulation, I think, is so cruel and mean. But if I'm upset at Gary, and of course, I'm never upset with my man. He's so perfect and fabulous. But let's say I am. Of course, I get upset with him. If I'm upset with Gary and I'm not honest with him about it, I don't tell him I'm upset, and instead I am quiet and seething, and it's because and I don't say anything. It's manipulative. Like, the reason I'm not saying anything is because maybe I'm afraid of his response, or I'll get into more of the reasons later, but there's a reason I'm not saying that I'm hurt or that I'm, overwhelmed by something or whatever. And at its heart, that's what manipulation is. I'm trying to get a different reaction out of you. That's what I'm doing. So in this case, I'm not saying something, or maybe I'm saying something in a different way, or maybe I'm saying something that's not true. It's manipulating. And it doesn't always mean it's cruel or anything. It just is. If maybe I have a friend who asks me if I like her hair, and I don't think the haircut looks good. I don't want to hurt her feelings, so I might say something else like, wow, you cut your hair. How do you like it? That's usually what I do. I'm like, how do you like it? And if they love it, then I'm going to be supportive, because what do I know? And if they don't love it, then I might be a little more honest about it. That's how I do it. That's manipulative. You could call it that. I don't It is, because I am not wanting to hurt her feelings. So I am not saying the truth. That's just what it is. It doesn't mean I'm being mean. It doesn't mean I'm cruel. It doesn't mean it comes from a bad place in my heart. It just is what it is. That's what I'm doing. So as with anything, there's a lot of gray area here, people. There's a lot of room to move, which is why honesty can feel confusing. And definitely, I got people, some of you are listening right now going, no, Abby, it's true or it's not. It's honest or it's not. And that is true to a degree. Do you love how we're using the words true and honest, like interchangeably? It is true but I want you to really step back. There's a great quote by Andre Gide. Is that how you say that? Sorry for the French people listening. He's a French philosopher. I'm not sure how to say his last name. Gide, I do believe is how it's written. But he says, believe in those seeking truth, doubt those who find it. And I love that on so many levels, because it's also speaking to this. Like, there's not one absolute, when you get in your head that there's a black and a white and a wrong and a right, that's rigid and that's fear-based. It's because you're afraid to really, and I'm going there with you. Oh, I am. I'm not afraid of you. I'm going there. I'm risking the hate mail. I don't care, because I love you and I'm going to say it because this is honest. You're going there because it feels scary to have it not be black and white, to have to really do some other introspection and thinking about things. When things feel black and white, it's easier. Of course it is. It just is. I love you. I don't blame you for that. I do it too sometimes. I'm just saying what it is. We all have to be clear about why we get to that place about it. So, and I will have things in my head that for me are very right and wrong. I do. It's just that I also have room for hearing other viewpoints, and that right or wrong isn't at the end of the day the only metric I can use to assess something, that I'm also looking at other things. So I want you to think that way too. That's all. There you go. So it's just, I just don't want to slam the door on people, right? When I decide, well, they're just wrong or they lied, so it's over. I want to lean into that more. I want to figure out why. I want to ask questions. I want to really understand what's happening. And I can't do that if I just get very black and white and rigid. Now, sometimes I don't want to go down that road because I don't want to hear things I don't want to hear, right? I don't want to test the things I've believed for so long, and maybe even said. I've had over the years, I've gone back on things I've thought earlier. Of course, I've grown and changed as a person. Things I thought in my 20s were so true. I don't necessarily think so anymore. Some I do, but not all. And that's okay, right? Honesty is always, as I'm speaking about honesty today, it's always from a loving heart and a willingness to be open and vulnerable. And when we get rigid, we're not open and vulnerable. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So, because honesty isn't brutal honesty. We have this thing in the, as you know, at this point, unless it's your first time listening, hello, if it is. And I didn't turn off my phone, sorry. We have this thing where we talk about honesty being in the 12-step program. Sorry, I got distracted because my phone dinged. I'm back. Brutal honesty, right? Or rigorous honesty. Sorry, that's the word we use a lot. I was trying to remember. In the 12 steps, we'll say that. It's a program of rigorous honesty. And I find that people get really weird with that because, as addicts, we get very black and white. That's sort of one of the hallmarks of addiction, is a very kind of rigid way of thinking, a black and white. It's good or it's bad. This is, everything is terrible or everything is fine. It's just something most people who struggle with drugs and alcohol, have drug and alcohol problems It's a very black and white sort of attitude in life. And so when people say that, you have to be rigorously honest. I can hear it even in their, it's a very accusing tone usually. Well, you have to be rigorously honest, And right away, that feels fearful to me. When anyone gets angry or impatient or worried, or that's not love-based, that's fear-based. So I want you to be really careful with this word. And that's why we're going a little deeper before I get to my tips here. So honesty for me is not brutal honesty, and it's not, rigorous honesty. Being honest, because being honest, here's what I want to say, isn't an excuse. It's not an excuse to criticize or berate somebody. It's brutal honesty to me, again, is fear-based, and usually in some form is sort of a lashing out. Whenever someone says, I need to be really honest with you, it's usually in an accusing tone. It's usually something I don't want to hear. And that hurts. And I'm trying to think, I just had this with a couple. Oh, here we go. So not that long ago, I had a couple, this is probably a couple months ago. And when they go out with friends, he tends to, he has a few drinks, right? And he gets real loose and he's not drunk or anything, but he has a few. But he sort of loses, he gets very domineering and dominating in a conversation. He gets very dominating in the conversation. He'll talk over people. He'll interrupt them. He'll keep talking and not, he doesn't pick up on the social cues and things like that. And his fiance, this woman, was getting very embarrassed. She didn't like going out at night. He would do this thing every time they went out with friends, and she'd feel embarrassed by it and all these other things. Anyway, so she chose to wait to the couple session to tell him. She said, I need to be honest with you. When we go out, you're always you're always dominating the conversation, and everybody hates it. That's what she said. And everybody hates it. And you know. And for me, and so I backed her up, and I'm like, I don't know that that's really honesty. I mean, yeah, it's honesty on some level, but not here. And so we worked on that. It's like, what are you really trying to say to him? How do you feel, And we finally got to a place where she was able to say to him, I get really uncomfortable with how you act when we're out with friends. And I end up feeling embarrassed because I think it's a reflection on me. That's honest. That's honest. But do you see the difference there? Honesty isn't just about saying everything you think and feel. That's not it. The goal, here we go. Ready, drum roll. What's the goal of honesty? To me, the goal of honesty is to be closer to others. How do you like that? The goal of honesty is to be closer to other people. So you need to communicate in a way that others can receive so you can build trust and intimacy. When this, fiance was saying to this guy, well, everybody hates it. First of all, every single person you've ever met has hated this. I don't know. That's not even true. Second, you're not speaking for everybody. It's just for yourself, right? So that part wasn't true. You're only doing that because you don't feel like it's good enough to say it's from you. You want to say everybody says it, and it's not getting closer. He was defensive. I would have been. He was, because he was hurt by it. He felt embarrassed, of course, like, oh my God, these people have been talking about me. Yikes. And there's just kinder ways to say that and still be honest, quote unquote, and build closeness instead of, distance. And instead of it feeling like a criticism, which is what that was and felt like, it can really be about, wow. And for her, and it was really great because this wonderful fiance, this woman, she said, wow, I really need to work on that I've always felt this in relationships, like my partner was a reflection on me. And so I've gotten very controlling with my partners in the past. That's actually one of the reasons they were coming in. And this is how, one of the ways it shows up. And so when I can find a reason to control, I feel better. And anyway, we had a wonderful, deep conversation, and they had a very connecting conversation because we did it that way, right? Because we went that way. So it was pretty great. Okay. So honesty in any relationship really means that you stop avoiding certain conversations, right? That you get real with yourself about why you're avoiding in the first place. Honesty means you tell others about the real you so you can be yourself in your relationships. That's what I want more than anything. I want you to speak in a way where you feel like you can be yourself. And yourself is not a critical, judgmental, mean person. Yourself is a vulnerable, open, sometimes afraid, juicy, yummy person. So come from there, right? Come from there. And and we're speaking about all this because how to be more honest, because I want you to get that integrity piece down. I want you to build trust from that corner of any relationship you're in. And when you don't share your true feelings, your partner or whoever, they pick up on that. There's an incongruence when we're saying something but feeling something else, when we're saying a lie, basically. And I've talked about, that 50, how our conscious, Timothy Wilson's work, how our conscious brains process information at a rate of 50 bits per second, while our unconscious or subconscious processes information at a rate of 11 million bits per second. Hello. And you've had this so many times. Someone is talking to you at work and you feel like they're full of shit, even though they're saying all the right things. You have no reason to feel like they're full of shit. They're saying everything well, but you can pick up on this other energy. And that is happening when you speak to someone, they're picking up on your energy, and vice versa. So when you tell, let's say, your partner that, you're not upset, I'm fine, and they can tell you're upset, they stop trusting what you say at some point. And I see this all the time. When you say you love your partner, they start to doubt that. They start to doubt that too. They doubt when you tell them that they're handsome or beautiful. They doubt when all that. They start to doubt the actual real truth of the relationship. I work with people so much, and some of this is on you yourself, obviously. Your partner, you maybe you have trauma in your past or some other issues from your past that you just don't trust, period. You just don't trust. But this is one of the big pieces. You have learned in your life that when people say something, it's not aligned with what they mean. So you might be basing that on a past, or you might be basing that on that 50 versus 11 million bits. Right now, you just get like, well, my partner's always telling me things that I don't believe. So my trust, it's disintegrating over time. That's what happens. And so I can't trust anything. And that's where things get really, really dangerous. That's when we're getting so distant from the people in our lives. Now, there's a lot of reasons that we're not honest with the people in our lives, right? We avoid honesty in general because of a fear-based thought. We avoid it because of something we're afraid of. And so, maybe you feel like your mom tends to criticize you when you're together, right? Tends to comment on things or tends to always point out the negative. But you never say anything. You're never honest about it. And maybe that's because you're afraid of hurting her feelings. Maybe you think, I don't want to say anything. My mom is old. She can't take it. I've had some people, I had a client not that long ago who was an alcoholic and she was doing, I'm sorry, she wasn't an alcoholic. She was an alcoholic, but her real issue, was opiates. She was taking pills, and she was very close to her grandmother growing up. Her grandmother had helped raise her for many years, and she didn't want to tell her grandmother about her addiction, period, right? At all. And she was saying it was because her grandmother couldn't handle it. And I got to tell you, grandmas can handle anything. Grandmas have been around a long time. You're the one who can't handle things, which is what I said to her. So she was clearly ashamed and didn't want to be this way in front of her grandmother. And then we kept talking about it. And finally she said, well, I'll just tell her I'm an alcoholic. She'll be able to handle that. I'm not going to tell her about, the pills. And it was the same thing. It's like, she can totally handle the pills. Trust me. You're the one who can't handle this. And again, because she was just so afraid of in this case, not hurting her grandmother's feelings, really, even though she was saying that. She was afraid of her not being loved by her grandmother, being rejected by her grandmother thinking differently of her grandmother not respecting her, all these things. And that's different, right? That's something else. We're afraid of people's reactions. And by the way, sometimes you might be right on. You might be at a kind of job. I'll keep with the being a drug addict, right? You might be at a job where it is not okay to tell people that you're an addict, and to me, that's a boundary because there could be a really major repercussion. But as long as you're talking about it everywhere else, right? As long as you're being honest at work, at home or with a sponsor or in 12-step meetings or, it's just about not keeping that a secret from the whole world, right? So so you see how this being honest thing, sometimes it's a boundary, sometimes it's not, right? There's a lot, I know it's not so black and white. That's what I'm trying to point out. You're not honest with your partner maybe about, I had this recently with not so recently, sorry. Everything wasn't recently. This one wasn't recent, but it's somebody who stands out for me. She wasn't honest with her partner. She wanted more time with her partner. She wanted to spend more time with her. Her partner was a woman also. She wanted to spend more time with her. And she just wanted, more. And she was really afraid of looking clingy or needy. And she was so she was afraid of being rejected. So she wasn't, and she was afraid of how it would look. And I'm not that kind of person and all the things, right? So she wasn't being honest. Trying to think of there's so many examples. Maybe you're not honest with your partner, again, because you're worried they'll leave you. That's a big one. Like this person won't even stay with you anymore. They're not going to respect you anymore. I think one of the biggies is that people aren't always honest because they're afraid that the other person won't change. And then what? And I'm telling you, I think this is a biggie for most people. I'm not telling my partner how I really feel about this because I'm afraid that nothing will happen. And then what'll I do? Right? I don't want to leave. Am I forced to leave? Do I have to break up with this person? And again, because we get very black and white. No, you don't. You can just talk about it. And a lot of times you talk about things over time before something changes. So it's not one conversation, it's many. A lot of times just in the talking, you get clearer about what the real problem is. So there's a lot of reasons we don't share. There's what's truly happening. And I don't want you to beat up on yourself about it. If you haven't been honest in the past, if this has been a struggle for you, to really say what you want or feel, or you might have extreme anxiety and just can't. Again, there's a reason, right? You might have a biological issue, but beyond that, it's again because you're afraid of being rejected or abandoned. There's always a thing on the other side of why we don't want to do something. So I don't want you to beat up on yourself. I don't want you to, feel like what a loser, what's wrong with me, whatever. It is what it is. We're here, and I'm here to help. So. If you can have some compassion, empathy, and patience for yourself is really, really what I'd like you to have. So, okay, so let's talk about my tips. I got 3 tips for you today for being more honest so you can build trust. You can build up that leg of the trust triad in your relationships. Now, remember, you're still going to have to work on the other legs of the triad. You're still going to have to work at your competence and your goodwill, but because you always have to work on all 3. A lot of times people get very focused in on just this one, actually, this honesty part. And that's often not the problem. It's other things. So trust is again, built on these 3 things. Everything kind of comes down to these 3 things. So make sure you're doing all 3. But today, let's get to how to build more trust, right? How to be more honest. Okay, so the first one, though, tip is I want you to identify what's your motive. I want you to think about why you're sharing something before you say it. So what does this mean? What does it mean? You should be saying it right now. What do you have to be good at to be able to notice your motive before you speak? To be able to stop yourself from blurting out whatever it is just because you had an impulse. What do you have to be great at? Yes, you answered correctly. I love you so much. Mindfulness. You have got, I keep coming back here because, as you can see, I can teach you all this great stuff. If you're not mindful, you won't remember to do it. The words will already be out of your mouth. You'll already have been critical or even mean or whatever, or angry or yelled or whatever you might do without realizing it. Or it might be 5 days before you realize that you never said something when the opportunity was there because you weren't mindful. So download my free mindfulness starter kit. I'll link to it here. It's on the website, on the shop page. It is free. It's on the shop page, but it's 100% free. I mean, come on. You got to get better at this. You got to get better at the mindfulness. All right. So if you're not being mindful and aware of yourself in a moment, right, you're not going to have that pause button before you speak. And that's what you need. So I always talk about, you want to act, not react. There's a Indian spiritual master, Sai Baba, or Shirdi Sai Baba, and who said, don't yell, don't come for me if I say this a little wrong, but I've been quoting it for many years, so I'm pretty sure I'm right. He says, before you speak, think of these questions. So before you speak, think, is it necessary? Is it true? Right? Is it necessary to say this? Is it true? And true is really that piece of getting clearer about what this motive is. Is it kind? Will it hurt anyone? And will it improve on the silence, right? These are great questions, asking one or all of these before you speak, before you have the reaction. Again, you're mindful, so you're noticing, and you're thinking, why do I want to say this thing? So if we go back to the couple I mentioned earlier, she's wanting to tell her fiance to stop, talking all night when they're out with friends after he's had a couple drinks, and to stop dominating because it was embarrassing her. But it was embarrassing her because of her own issues. And so she had to look at those, right? So then what she said to him, so it could still be true, like, hey, I want to bring this up to you because people really don't like it. That could be true. It doesn't mean everyone hated it, but some people, I'm sure, didn't like it. I wouldn't enjoy it if someone was dominating a conversation. Although personally, I would say something to them and not wait for their partner or someone else to say it. Why don't, we could say it ourselves. And saying it though, right, when she really thought about it more, as we did in the session, it had such a different way it came across, and she was being vulnerable, and she was talking about her own stuff, and she ended up asking him questions, So do you notice that you do this? Do you notice that you're speaking a lot? And of course, what it came out, he's very socially anxious. He has such a hard time. He does really well at work because everything is sort of a one-on-one situation, and he's occasionally with, 2 or 3 people in something, but he knows these people. He's been around them a long time. He's been at the same job for 16 years, right? 16 years. He's not, one of the reasons he's not leaving his job, even though he gets unhappy there. Again, we ended up having these great conversations because then he got vulnerable and started talking about his anxiety when he never realized he had this, by the way. I sort of pointed it out. And now we had this incredible conversation that was rich and open and vulnerable because she was stopping to really talk about what was truly true underneath it all, and to then ask some questions about it, right? Which we'll talk about in a second. But if you can really think about why you want to say the thing, honesty needs to come from love. That's it. That's probably the only tip you should walk away with today. It should be tender. It should be thoughtful. It should be compassionate. It should be kind. Again, brutal, rigorous honesty is fear-based and has no place in any kind of love relationship. And when I say love relationship, I mean all of our relationships. I mean your relationships with your friends, with your coworkers, with, your parents, your siblings, right? Your partner. It's all their love relationships at their base, and meaning not that you're in love with these people, but when I talk about love, they're relationships based on connection. That's the point of being honest, right? We're trying to deepen connection. If I am more connected to a coworker who's always bugging me they are, and doesn't ever give me the work on time that I need to do my work, if I can find a way to connect with that person, I'm going to have a better chance of that person wanting to get the stuff to me quicker. If I can figure out what the breakdown really is, if they can get vulnerable enough to share what that really is, because I'm vulnerable enough to share what it is for me, then we have a whole new way that something can happen, a whole new uncovering. Because when you go in and just go, hey, this is late, you can't keep doing this, this is, not helping anybody, blah, blah, blah. When you just go into that black and white, you're right. It's wrong for your coworker not to get the stuff on time, not to get it to you when they said they would. It's wrong for them when they know, and they do often, that you can't do your work without their, piece of it. It's quote unquote wrong. But do you want to be correct or effective? I always come back to that. Do you want to be correct or effective? And it's effective to come from a different place with what the truth is, with what you're really feeling, with what's really going on there. I've walked into meetings when I've had someone who doesn't like me a lot, and I can tell, or I think I can tell. And I've said that. I'm like, I get the feeling you don't like me. And I'll just say it. And I don't say it like, you don't like, I'm not attacking them. I'm actually coming from a kind of a hurt place. And sort of like, I get the feeling you don't like me. And sometimes I say that too. This is really hard to say. I'm feeling really vulnerable sharing it with you because I don't feel like we have much trust. But I'm going to go there. Is there something I've done that's created something where you feel like, I'm not your person? And I've definitely had people say, well, I think you're full of shit and blah, blah, blah. And, they've really come for me when I've done that. It's happened. Usually not, though, by the way. Usually people back right down. I'd say the vast majority of times people have said, oh, no, I don't know what you're talking about, but then have been really nice to me because I called them out on it. I was honest, and it did create something else, and we could find a new place to start. Other times people have come for me with that, and, I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here I need to hear. Maybe there's a way I come across. But at the end, I just say, all right, we need to work together. What are the things I can do to help you trust me, to help you feel like I'm not full of shit? What are the things I can do to help us get to this next place? What can I do? And that's where we get going in the right direction, because I'm asking for what positive things I can do, not what I should stop doing, because that's whatever. And they'll often start there, but then what can I do, right? What can happen? And that it moves the conversation and it gets us into a closer place. So again, another example of coming from love, right? Which I call love. And I know that's a broad term, and if you haven't been listening to me for a long time, you don't know what I mean. But if you have, you should know what I mean by now. Come on now. But I'm talking about just that openness, that vulnerability, the compassion, the true wanting to connect with another human and figure out what's going on. Okay. Tip number 2 of our 3 tips is I want you to share feelings, not thoughts. If you want to, being honest is about sharing what you feel, not your judgments or thoughts about things. It's about sharing your true feelings, not your reactions. And so I've said before that you have a right to your true feelings, but you don't have a right to your reactions. And people have come for me for that, but that's okay. I can take it. Because your reactions are the top crap. You react. If you say something to me and I don't like it and my reaction is to shoot you, I don't have a right to that. I don't have a right to, that's a reaction. I don't have a right to it. It's not a right just because I want to do it. But I have certainly every right to my true feelings and to express those. But our true feelings are usually under our initial reactions. So if your partner says something that upsets you and you lash out in anger, yes, anger is a feeling. Okay, that's your truth. But what's underneath that? When you have anger, resentment, frustration, impatience, we psychologist types call those top feelings. And those are the more reactionary ones. Sometimes they're meant to push people away so that they stop asking us questions. Sometimes it's just the only thing we know how to do is to react in anger. It's all we ever saw. It's all we know how to do. You want to give yourself a moment and dig down to what's under those feelings to get to the real ones. My favorite quote, I say it all the time, from Celeste Ng. If anybody knows her, make her listen to my podcast so she can know how much I love her. She's the author of Little Fires Everywhere and a bunch of other books. And she had this quote, "Anger is the bodyguard of fear." And it's so good. It's so true, so good. We know it. So for you, think of that. What's my real fear? What's really happening when my partner is upset? Or I'm feeling abandoned by them. I feel like they don't have my back. I'm feeling sad or alone. I don't feel like we're a team. See how this shifts? That's a very different place to come from when you're talking to someone than the other. That vulnerability is what allows people to come closer to us. And you know it because when someone else is vulnerable with you, your reaction is not to beat them down. It's not. Your reaction is to lean in. Oh, are you okay? Our reaction is to come closer. It's the thing we admire most about others that we really connect to, but we have the hardest time doing it ourselves. And I'm talking from my own too. I don't want to say I suck at being vulnerable anymore, but I'm not great at it. I think I've moved up from sucking at it to just not being great at it. It is something I didn't grow up with. It is something, again, that I learned. If you're vulnerable, it's exposed. You're going to get hurt, all the things. It's really vulnerable for me to be on this friggin' podcast. I'm speaking to tens of thousands of people all the time. It's hundreds of thousands. I'm speaking to all these people all around the world. It's friggin' vulnerable. I'm telling you my opinion on something. I am putting it out there. I'm coming at you because I feel driven to do this podcast, right? But I have to keep coming back to myself but I want to help. I want to be honest. I want to say what's true. I want to get through to people. I really want to make this world a better place. And I want to just make your life better. Right now, I'm just talking to you. I want to make your life better. I love you. I want to make your life better. So I'm going to be vulnerable because we're in a relationship. It's that same kind of thing. You might just think, well, Abby's just her and she's just opinionated and says whatever she thinks and she doesn't seem to care what anybody thinks and whatever. Of course I care. Why do you think I do podcasts on it? We teach what we need to learn. Of course I care. I don't worry about it anymore in my life, but I care about it. It can hurt me. I'm human. I get hurt. People say mean things. I get hurt. It happens, but I also get over it quickly. I use my tools. I use what I teach you to not get dug into that stuff. But being vulnerable is the jam. It's the best. It's really, what you want to be doing. And it's really at the heart of honesty. And that's what builds trust. That's your secret sauce. And because, right, what I keep saying, the reason for honesty in a relationship is to deepen our connection and trust with another person. And we don't connect with thoughts. We connect with feelings, right? You don't connect with thoughts. So when you're telling your partner or your friend what you're thinking about something, you're not connecting. And that's really not the honest part. Drop down into your feelings. It's when we're sharing our feelings and being vulnerable, that is when we strengthen and deepen our connections. So you want to take a moment or two or three and identify what you're truly feeling. Remember what's underneath about whatever it is that you want to share. You want to check in with your motive, right? Why do I want to share this? Is this something, where is this coming from? Is it coming from love or fear? When you do those things, that's where the honesty lives. That's where all the love lives. Okay. And that brings us very easily, in my beautiful segue, to tip number 3, which is you got to listen well. Part of honesty, again, it's a communication. I'm trying to get closer to you, so I need to be listening to you too. When we're honest with someone, it also means that we're ready to honestly listen to any feedback or comments they might make. They might not have been listening to the podcast and know how to do that. So, it means that we keep that same loving intent as we receive information back. I'm letting that sit for a minute. Again, you're being honest to build trust in your relationship, and that means communication, and communication is two-way. Now, when someone's giving you feedback and you don't enjoy it, there are ways to, speak to that. Like, hey, can you say that to me differently? Can you tell me how you feel about that? I understand what you're thinking about it. I'm hearing you, but what do you feel? And help them get to a feeling. It's really important to listen to to learn how to listen without getting defensive or hurt, right? Because you want to build trust both ways. I did How to Listen Without Getting Defensive or Hurt in episode 124. So go back and listen. I have done many on, how to give feedback, how to accept feedback, all the things. But really, it's all about listening. It's all about just having that intention when you're being open to listen with an open heart, to be honest, but be honest with that. So it's honest to say back, I'm having a hard time with how you're talking to me right now. Can you tell me, can you say that in another way that's kind and gentle? That's honest. That's honest. I know you love me. I don't feel that right now as you're talking. Is there other language you can use right now? Should we take a break before we keep talking about this? I want us to connect on this. Is there something else you could suggest for how we could talk about this to connect? Anything, right? But it's all honest. That's what's really going on. What's really going on is I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling disconnected, and what's honest, I don't want to feel that way. So how do we lean in? How do I connect to you? Okay. Those are my 3 tips. And I do want to say, because I always get asked, can I keep anything private, Abby? Where does that end? Where does the honesty end is really what people want to know. And so I'm going to end with where the honesty ends. And so I don't personally advocate telling your partner everything at all. That's what best friends are for. That's what therapists are for. I think there are many feelings people have that are better discussed with someone other than the person. Now, having said that, let me just say this. Let me be clear. Do not go talking shit about your partner or your best friend with 50 other people. That is not what I am saying right here. Please hear me. I don't want you misunderstanding, misrepresenting what I'm saying. I am saying that there are times when, let's say, Gary has bothered me, that when I go and talk to, I have like 3 trusted people I talk to. I have a therapist. I have 2 kind of best buddies that I speak to about things. I will go to one of them, or more than one, usually not all 3, now that I think about it, but anyway, and I will bring up the issue. And because I usually have an inkling if something is my crap that I'm taking out on Gary and I don't want to, or on someone else. Again, it doesn't have to be a partner. This can be for anybody. And I want to spend a minute figuring out my motives, what I want to say, how I want to say it, what I'm really trying to say. Sometimes I get really fired up and I can't figure that out because I'm human, just like the rest of us, right? We're all human. So taking a moment and figuring that out, what happens much of the time is I realize that something that Gary did that bothered me shouldn't bother me. Well, not shouldn't. That's terrible to say. Is bothering me because of my own crap, not his. He really did mean it in a whatever way, and I'm being too sensitive, or I'm being more sensitive to this topic for whatever reason. What I do try to do is come back to him and say, hey, the other day when you said XYZ, it really upset me. And then I talked to, Rhonda, my best friend, about it. And here's what she said. And here's what I started thinking. And I realized this. That is the intimacy. That is the honesty. I'm now sharing a deeper part of myself. I'm sharing something that's more vulnerable. Now, sometimes when I do that, he gets a little defensive in the beginning. He's like, well, I didn't mean it that way. I said, let me finish. I'm really listen to what I'm saying. Sometimes I have to set it up that way because he really never wants to hurt me. So he'll get a little defensive. So I'll set up and I'll say, I want to tell you something I learned about something you said last week that originally hurt me, that does not hurt me anymore, that I realized was my stuff. But I'd like to tell you about it because I want you to understand me more. and that this is totally me, not you. Do you understand? Can I tell you? So I literally have to do it that clearly a lot of times. And he's like, yes, you have my full attention, But then I can share this thing and he can just empathize. He's like, oh, wow, that must be hard. And we will sometimes problem solve. Like, are there things I can do to help you feel more safe in the future? Or are there things, whatever, that I can just take out of my vocabulary so you don't even have to have the trigger. You don't even have to go down this road, even though I know it's not about me. We can have some really wonderful conversations about it. So I want you to think about it like that there's spaces where, again, to me, it's just figuring out my motive, more or less, that I'm deciding whether to say something or not. I've had many clients who've come to me upset about something their partner's doing, only to find that, again, it's linked to old issues for them, something from before. And once they figured it out with me, they didn't even feel like they need to mention it to their partner. But what I do want is for you to talk to your partners, to be honest about your struggles about things, to be honest about what's hard for you and how you're working that out, to ask them for support, to ask them to just listen while you tell them. This is where it's at. With everything, you've got to check into your own feelings about why you're sharing or not sharing something with your partner. Is it from love or is it from fear? Are you worried about their reaction and that's why you're not telling them how you feel? Where is it from? Just make sure that it's a boundary, not a secret. That's it. You just want to make sure something is, you're not sharing it because it's a boundary, but not because it's some kind of secret that you feel ashamed of or anything else. Okay. Woo! We did it. Episode 201. Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here with me today. I, as always, know you have a lot of ways to spend your time, and I love that you're here with me. I love you. Oh, I love you. I love this time together. I so appreciate that we get to have these kinds of conversations together. That is very much how it feels to me. And that you trust me enough to really have these conversations. See, now I'm going to cry, when I start crying. Okay. That you trust me enough to have these conversations, because that's what that is. And that kind of trust feels incredible and fills my heart. So thank you for filling my heart. I hope I filled yours today. Have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you real soon.